One strand of hair, one drop of blood, even a single fingerprint can connect a suspect to a crime scene. But while fingerprints can sometimes be smudged or missing, DNA provides a unique, reliable way to identify someone, even years later. This is thanks to a technique called DNA profiling, which has transformed criminal justice, disaster response, and even personal genealogy. DNA profiling is used to match biological evidence collected at crime scenes to suspects, to free wrongfully convicted individuals, and to identify victims of disasters. It's not just a forensic tool, it also helps people find family members and understand their ancestry. And it raises some important ethical and privacy questions about how our DNA is collected and used. In fact, DNA profiling isn't just for police and scientists anymore. Millions of people use at home DNA kits like the one you see here to discover their ancestry, health risks, and distant relatives. This shows how DNA profiling has become part of everyday life, not just criminal investigations. Now let's define what DNA is. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is the molecule that carries genetic instructions in all living things. Your DNA determines traits like eye color, your hair type, and much more. And it's found in almost every cell in your body. DNA is stored inside the nucleus of your cells, tightly packed into chromosomes. What makes it so powerful for identification is that, except for identical twins, no two people have the exact same DNA sequence. When scientists create a DNA profile, they focus on parts of the DNA that vary a lot between individuals. These are called short tandem repeats, or STRs, small sequences that repeat a different number of times in each person. By analyzing these regions, we can create a genetic barcode that identifies someone. Here's what an actual DNA profile looks like. Each person has a unique pattern. Scientists compare this pattern to evidence from a crime scene or to another sample to see if they match. Now that we understand what DNA profiling is and how it works, let's take a closer look at its history and some real-world examples.
History of DNA profiling. So, Sir Alec Jeffrey, a British geneticist, worked as a professor in the University of Leicester. After an unexpected result from studying genetic variations in his laboratory led to the discovery of DNA profiling on 1984. DNA profiling, or well known as DNA fingerprinting, allowed DNA samples from different people to be compared and looking for similarities and differences. Fun fact, DNA fingerprinting got its name from Alec Jeffrey's colleague, Nick Pradfa, when he noticed how similar it was to a fingerprint. In 1986, Colin Pitchford case was the first forensic use of DNA fingerprinting in the United Kingdom to convict a murderer and clear an innocent suspect. Some background is Colin Pitchfork, a local baker, raped and murdered two of his victims, and he evaded screening until a woman reported him to the police for his action. This case would demonstrate the power of DNA profiling in solving crimes and establishing its reliability as evidence in criminal investigations. 1990s, DNA profiling adopted short tandem repeat analysis, or STR, which was efficient with small samples, meant less DNA, and improved speed and accuracy. STR analysis means short repeating DNA sequences in the genome. 2000s till present, high throughput sequencing, HTS, was introduced, and it had to do with technology that was fast automated analysis and testing a large number of DNA samples. DNA databases were also expanding during this time.
As we mentioned, DNA profiling helps provide a reliable way to identify someone and learn more about their ancestry. A way we use DNA profiling in our lives today is through criminal justice, medical care, and ancestry, amongst many other uses. For example, law enforcement use DNA profiling to match suspects to crime scenes. They can look for fingerprints, blood, saliva, skin cells, and other traces of DNA to identify a culprit. A more recent way DNA profiling was used is during a disaster response in Texas caused by floods. They were able to take DNA samples of deceased victims and their families to identify a relationship and give them closure after the events. Now let's talk more about the pros of DNA profiling. In medicine, DNA can help doctors detect diseases based on genetic predispositions at an earlier rate. Additionally, doctors can use DNA to confirm family relationships. For adoptive children, it can help them understand their identity, heritage, and health risks they might endure. This process is highly accurate and reliable for those who go through it. Although DNA profiling does have great benefits, there are still some concerns about it. Websites like 23andMe can help you trace your ancestry, traits, and genetic health predispositions. These websites will not directly sell your identifiable genetic data without your consent, but they may share your data with researchers if you opt in. Another concern, although rare and highly unlikely, is that there may be contamination or mishandling of DNA samples. This evidence can lead to wrongful conclusions and accusations. Now that we have seen how DNA profiling is used and the impact it can have, both positive and negative, let's wrap things up.
Hello, my name is May, and for this presentation regarding of DNA profiling, I will be talking about how we use DNA profiling and examples of the uses of DNA profiling. I would like to start off with a basic brief introduction of when and how we use DNA profiling. So according to Sorensen Forensics 2021, DNA profiling is often used to identify criminals and innocent individuals who were falsely accused, and we only need the bodily fluids found at the crime scene to confirm your involvement. And I believe that this technique is actually really important because there are some cases that are unsolvable, and even when there are no bodily fluids left behind, traces like shed skin or hair fossils can still provide DNA for identification or confirmation. There are many ways we can use DNA profiling, and I would like to start off with the first one, which is identifying a killer. So, Alec Jeffries is a genetics professor at the University of Leicester, and according to the article from Maryville University, Jeffrey has previously discovered that each person's DNA exhibited distinct patterns that could be used to distinguish one person's DNA from another's. So he used that knowledge to identify the case of a murder, and he tested out about 400 people that were suspects of the murder, and he actually found the person who was responsible for the murder. This was because the DNA of the DNA of the person from the crime scene matched the patient that, or you could say the person that was a suspect of the crime scene. So it matched the DNA of the one at the crime scene. Moving on, there's another way that DNA profiling can be used, and it is the paternity and maternity testing. This can determine biological relationships between parents and children with a very high degree of accuracy. And because the DNA, like half of the DNA is from the mother and half of it's from the father, it makes it possible to confirm or rule out the percentage with over 99% certainty, which is a pretty high percent to confirm if it's your child or not. And another use of DNA profiling would be medical and genetic research. Well, the reason why genetic research is done is because this will help researchers study the inherited diseases and genetic disorders such as sickle cell disease and cystic fibrosis. And this can be used in gene mapping and personalized medicine for people who have sickle cell disease, and they can study how these conditions can be passed through generations. I believe this is all for the example of uses, because we're also going through this topic right now in our lecture. And I would like to say the vocabulary that I want to point out is the gene mapping. It is the locating of specific genes on chromosomes, in DNA profiling is applied to make personalized medicine. So the main reason for gene mapping is to make personalized medicine for people who have diseases such as sickle cell, which is inherited mainly. And the sickle cell disease is a genetic blood disorder caused by mutations, such as also cystic fibrosis is also a genetic disorder that affects the lungs and digestive system. And yeah, so that is it for today, and I have references at the back of my presentation. Thank you.